Next, we're going to come to a sitting position. Bring ourselves inwards. And bring the awareness to the hips and the pelvis. And see if you can relax around the hip joints and let the pelvis feel heavy. So you feel the sitting bones even into the floor or into your cushion or whatever you're sitting on. And then relax the legs. Elongate the spine from the pelvic bowl. So you feel like the ears are centered over the shoulders so that you're able to relax the skin on the back of the neck, the shoulder blades, sliding them away from the ears. Not deliberately, it's just releasing. You're not trying to pull them down. You're just allowing it to happen. Relaxing the jaw. And then start to bring your awareness to your breathing. So at first, just noticing your breath. Noticing how much movement there is in the chest or the belly with the breathing. Notice how the air feels coming in into the nostrils and as it leaves through the nostrils. And then we're going to slowly try to deepen the breath by making the inhales and the exhales a little longer. Also trying to make some sound with the breath, as if you're whispering with your breath. So it's like you're closing the vocal cords slightly as you're breathing in and out, and it tends to make that sound. And if you can make the breathing a little longer, then you're going to feel the rib cage moving more. And to keep the mind on the breathing, you can say to yourself inwardly, inhaling, 1, 2, 3, exhaling, 1, 2, 3. Inhaling, just at your own rhythm. Maybe you're doing a little longer than that or a little shorter. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to try to double the exhalation. So for example, if you were doing that count that I just did, inhaling 1, 2, 3, you would do exhaling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you're having any difficulty getting the exhale to be long enough, then shorten the inhale so you can keep the exhale double. So if you inhale to the count of 4, you exhale to the count of 8. If you inhale the count of 3, you exhale to the count of 6. Once you've stabilized this breathing, then we're going to do Nadi-shodhana. So if you already know Nadi-shodhana, you can go ahead and do this at your own breathing rhythm. Don't do any retentions for now, for the evening. Otherwise, I'm going to talk you through. So you take an exhalation, fully exhale all the air out of the body as if you're squeezing from the bottom, pushing the air out through the nostrils. And you're going to take your thumb and close your right nostril. Inhale through the left. Take your ring finger, close your left nostril. Exhale through the right. Double the exhalation. Inhale through the right. Close the right. Exhale left. That's one round. Inhale left. Exhale right. Inhale right. Exhale left. That's 2 rounds. Inhale left. Exhale right. Inhale right. Exhale left. So continue at your own breathing rhythm. So just finish one more round, and then you put both hands back to the knees. Coming back to even breathing, so the inhales and the exhales the same length again. Bringing the palms in front of the chest. Chant Om. Om. And rubbing the palms together, warming up the hands. Bringing the hands over the eyes. Opening the eyes behind the palms. And then slowly releasing them. So we're on the second pada. So there's 4 chapters to the Yoga Sutras. And so today we're just starting the second chapter. And the title of that chapter is Sadhana Pada. So sadhana means a spiritual discipline. So in this chapter, Patanjali lays out the disciplines that we can do, actual practices. Okay, so the very first sutra, Sutra 2.1, if you have your books there, you can get them out. So I'll go through the individual words. The first word is tapah, so I don't know if you've noticed that when the Sanskrit words are strung together, sometimes there's little differences than when you see the word alone. It's like when we are talking just together, we might kind of shorten words or skip words, but then if you just say the words separately, it might sound a little bit different, like I'll instead of I will, for example, in English. So tapaha is actually tapas. And so this means austerity or self-discipline. A lot of times it's probably better not to translate certain words. And this one is one of them that I think doesn't really translate very well. And when we look at it individually, we'll see this. But if you want to have a translation, austerity is the most common translation. And if you want to make notes, this word also shows up in the Eightfold Path, the Ashtanga path. And so it'll be later on in the second chapter in the niyamas. Okay, so some of you have already studied some Yoga Sutras, and it's Sutra number 243. Okay, so if you're going back and forth a little. Then the next word is svādhyāya, and this means self-study. And this again is one of in the niyamas as well, and it's Sutra 244. I'm pointing this out because to me that also shows the importance of these words. The next word is Ishvara, which means the ultimate self or God, the Lord, something like this. Pranidhānāni, which means surrendering. So usually we hear it together, Ishvara-pranidhāna, which is surrendering to something higher, right? To the divine or God or the Lord or some principle that is higher than what we are, what we see and touch and feel. Then kriya. Kriya means action. Yoga, which is, we already know it again, that's a kind of hard word to just translate, but if you want to translate it, yoke or union, spiritual discipline, something like this. So putting it all together, it's the yoga of action, which is kriya-yogah. So kriya-yoga consists of austerity, self-study, and surrender to the Lord. So kriya-yoga consists of tapah, svādhyāya, and īshvara-pranidhānāni. Okay, so it consists of those three things. And those three things also appear in the 8 limbs of yoga. So you could say that they're quite important, that he's mentioned them in 2 different places. Okay, so kriya-yoga. So kriya, as I said, is an action. So basically it's saying these are practices. These are things that we're going to actually try to do to work towards stilling the fluctuations of the mind. We saw in the first pada, in the second sutra, Sutra 1-2, that yoga is the stilling of the fluctuations of the mind or the restraining of the thoughts, or one of those kinds of translations. So Kriya Yoga is this yoga of action, okay, that's going to work towards, well, we'll see in the next sutra actually. So we need to do these 3 things to be practicing Kriya Yoga. First is tapas. So tapas literally means to heat. So this kind of gives us a clue, because when we heat something, we transform it, we change it. When we want to heat water, it's going to change. If we heat gold, it's going to change. And then also they say that heating something purifies something, right? So I don't know if it's this case in every scenario, but a lot of the commentators will use the example of gold. To heat, you heat the gold to purify it, to remove any of the stuff that isn't pure gold, right? So we are using heat to purify our bodies. Okay, so hopefully that makes some sense. And so we use this heat to transform, burn away the unwanted. Okay, so you can use that as a metaphor, right? So we're going to burn away the stuff that is unwanted, okay, in ourselves. So the practices that are going to work on the body and the mind. So you think about what kind of practices are those. That would be yoga asana, yoga pranayama. Right? Mostly, this is what you're talking about. Different traditions will have different practices. So the Yoga Sutras, he's just laying this out there, and then the actual practices you're going to do will depend on the yoga master you're studying with. Okay, so you could, sometimes it's also translated as self-discipline, right? So it creates change, and another way to look at it is to develop this burning desire to progress on the spiritual path, right? So this burning desire, we need to cultivate this desire. If we don't cultivate so it gets confusing, because we also see that we're trying to, in the first chapter, we saw that we want to let go of, you know, these desires. We want to have some sense of renunciation, letting go, things like this. But at the same time, if we want to change something, right? Let's say I'll use the example of yoga asana. If you want to do yoga asana and you want to complete, let's say, primary series, you have to cultivate that burning desire to want to complete primary series. Otherwise, we're going to be taken off the path very easily, right? I'm not really in the mood today, and this is too hard. My muscles are sore. So if you don't have some desire behind it, then we're not going to get on our yoga mat. Same if we want to practice pranayamas or meditation or study the Yoga Sutras. So we have to put that fire underneath us to get us to come tonight and listen to some ideas about the Yoga Sutras, to read the commentaries. Okay, so there's also in the commentaries, because there's this idea of austerity, you'll also find a lot of commentaries about to change, there's an element of suffering. Okay. So if I want to change my diet, for example, let's say I've decided I want to become vegetarian, I want to let go of any animal products in my diet, and if I enjoy animal products, well, there's going to be a little bit of suffering there, right? It's not going to feel comfortable. So we also have to recognize this and kind of be able to go over this little bit of suffering, because basically nothing good comes easy, as they say, right? Like if I want to become more conscious of my eating habits, you're going to have to look at, what's the ingredients are in things. Maybe you're going to have to go to a different place to do your shopping. Lots of different things might have to happen to change your eating habits. So same if you want to complete primary series, a lot of things might have to change, right? You're not going to add something to your busy daily program without having to let go of some other things, which might feel kind of uncomfortable originally, right? You might have to let go of certain, surfing the net or hanging out at the bar. Now it's easy not to hang out at bars because there's no bars. But when all your friends are going to the bar after work, you might not be able to do that all the time, right? Things like this. So I wanted to also read to you, because there's another book called the Bhagavad Gita that is a section of the Mahabharata that talks about yoga and some different, so I don't want to get it all into that, but there is a section that talks about tapas in there. So I wanted to read you some of this because it kind of elaborates on what Patanjali is mentioning, but he doesn't mention a lot of detail. So if you happen to be studying the Bhagavad Gita, you'll look at 17.5 all the way to about 17:19. There's a few that I skipped there, but 17.5 and 17.6. So some invent harsh penances, motivated by hypocrisy and egotism. Oh, I didn't bring it down here. I was going to show you my Gita that I read from. They torture their innocent bodies and me who dwells within them. Okay, so it's me like the Lord. It's Krishna. Blinded by their strength and passion, they act and think like demons. Okay. Sometimes the language sounds a little like it's not very modern to talk about demons, but we can think about it. So if I'm going to, and the reason why I like this is because I'm usually talking to people who are doing Ashtanga yoga. And when I learned all this, it really made me see the practice in a very different light, because we can be very harsh on ourselves when we're practicing Ashtanga yoga. I need to complete this series. I need to be able to do this pose, and I'm going to do anything that, I'm going to try it 5 times. Sometimes I see that in the Mysore room. I'll see somebody trying this version of Kapotasana, with the chair, and then with the ball, and then with the wheel, and then with the teacher. And I'm just like, wow, like seriously, they're very addicted to being able to do Kapotasana. I don't see it. I never had the opportunity to practice in this way, because I was usually with a very Mysore style strict teacher. So you got one chance to try the pose, and basically that was it. Maybe sometimes a second chance, but you certainly weren't trying a pose 5 different times. And I think there's an element of self-torture when you do that, and so these, talking about tapas, I hear that in there. If you're really goal-oriented on this, it becomes a bit hypocritical, because we're also letting go. The asanas aren't supposed to mean so much. It's supposed to be a practice that we work through for changing the mind, right? We purify the body, we purify the breath, so that we can purify our mind and have a settled mind. If you're addicted to a yoga pose or a yoga practice, in the sense that you really go beyond what feels easeful and comfortable, then you're going into this penance, right? And so you might be creating harm in your body. So, going on in this whole section, there's like 2, 4, 6, 8 aphorisms. So, to offer service to the gods, to the good, to the wise, and to your spiritual teacher, purity, honesty, continence, and non-violence. These are the disciplines, the tapas of the body. So when we're dealing with our bodies, the tapas are practice in our body, which I guess everybody's doing Ashtanga yoga or vinyasa yoga, right? So to really do tapas of the body, then we also have to have some purity, honesty, continence, and non-violence. Okay, so we should not be violent to our body. Then, next one, to offer soothing words, to speak truly, kindly, and helpfully, to study the scriptures. These are the disciplines, the tapas of speech. Okay, so our tapas of our speech, we want to be speaking with loving kindness, truth, kindness, honesty, these pure words, soothing words, kind words, helpful words, all these kind of things. So this is also a tapas. So when we're going around dealing with our friends, with our co-workers, our boss, our employees, the shopkeeper, we have to try to keep these kinds of things in mind. This is tapas of speech. And then calmness, gentleness, silence, self-restraint, and purity. These are the tapas of the mind. So we're also trying to practice to be gentle with ourselves, to be calm in our mind, to be okay in silence, right? Because sometimes it's hard to be silent. I remember when I first started yoga, I don't know, I always had the radio on or music on, or, I always had to have noise there, and to be completely alone in silence and to have to hear myself was uncomfortable, was really uncomfortable. So it took me time to be able to do that. When these three levels of self-discipline, these three levels of tapas, are practiced without attachment to the results. Okay, because if I'm totally attached to the results of this, I'm going to be honest, because then this is going to make me a better person than that person, because that person's dishonest. This person lies all the time. This isn't tapas, right? It's not for that kind of thing. It's just to do it. It's just the path. It's not to make you something else. Does that make sense? So we have to let go of the fruits of our actions. So for example, when we're doing primary series or second series, third series, whatever series we're doing, it's not to obtain a series, right? We use this as little mini, you know, it shows me that I am on the right path. But if I'm clearly attached that, okay, I use the example of Kapotasana again. So if I'm clearly attached to being able to achieve Kapotasana, and what happens first when you get it? What does that mean? Have you achieved anything? Does this make you something other than you are? It's just a little indication that you've worked hard, right? What if you don't achieve it, right? Or what if you totally mess up your back while you're trying to achieve it, or mess up your shoulders while you're trying to achieve it, right? What does that mean? I've achieved something, but in the meanwhile, you know, now I have tendinitis in my shoulders. Right? Things like this. It's all stuff to contemplate on. Okay, where was I there? So, when these three levels of tapas are practiced without attachment to the results, but in a spirit of great faith, the sages call this practice sattvic. So we just have faith in that process, right? Some poses I manage to achieve, some I don't. Right? Sometimes I'm speaking with honesty and purity and kindness. Sometimes I'm not as skillful at that, right? But you're just working on that path. It's about working on the path rather than actually achieving that path. Discipline practice in order to gain respect, honor, or admiration are registic. Okay, so they are undependable and transitory in their effects. So if I go back to asana practice again, because I think we all relate to that, right? Does that make sense? Just tell me, you know, if you think I'm off the wrong track, you know, you should tell me. But I think asana is so easy to relate to. So if I'm achieving these asanas because it gives me respect in the community, I'm more honored as a, you know, a higher Ashtangi because I'm able to do certain poses, then it's going to be undependable and transitory. First, because I don't think you're ever going to always be able to do all those poses, right? Unless you die young, but we don't want that to happen, right? But as we age and grow, things are going to change, and you're not going to always be able to keep that same level of asana practice. And I would even say that if that is your focus, you've totally misunderstood, right? You've made a U-turn in your yoga practice because you haven't understood what it's about. In the first early years of your asana practice, we get stuck and maybe addicted into the bodily sensations. But if you are continuing on the path of yoga, eventually that is to teach you, I keep my body pure and healthy, and I'm able to breathe well, and all these letting the nadis be free and open, and all these kinds of things. But it isn't about any single asana, actually, right? Which is contradictory because here I am, the owner of a yoga studio, right? And so sometimes it sounds weird. I'm not saying not do yoga asana, but it's more your attitude towards the yoga asana. And I want you to learn to come in with that, you know, that passion and that drive to do it. But at the same time, I want you to also have this understanding that I don't want you to hurt yourself, right? I want you to respect yourself and learn to be kind with yourself and all these kind of higher invisible attributes, right? Okay, so yeah, so they're undependable and transitory. Then next, still from the Gita, disciplines practiced to gain power over others or in the confused belief that to torture oneself is spiritual are tamasic. Oh, so I didn't explain rajasic and tamasic. So rajasic is very full of energy, right? Movement, right? Fast, this kind of thing. So for sure, we can see that. And I've seen this in myself. Wow, oh God, I'm doing third series. Wow, this is so cool. And I feel like I can jump to the moon and, you know, like you get all that it's like a power. And it really is, honestly, you'll see later in the sutras, but I think it is a power when you're able to do certain very challenging asanas. It feels like a power, but the Yoga Sutras say that if you get stuck in that power, then you fall all the way down to the bottom again, right? If you're attached to that power, right? So then tamasic is dullness. I don't really feel like doing it. My mind is dull, my body feels heavy. My breathing, it just does whatever it wants, you know. So we're trying to find that sattvic, which is more, there's those three, you know, sattvic, rajas, and tamas. And you're trying to find some balance between those three. Okay, so it's not, you know, you're going to have this calming effect of tamas, this energizing of rajas, and then this clarity, this purity from sattva. Okay, so let's go to the next word because I see the time. I'm going to be like spending an hour on one word. So the next word was svādhyāya. So in general, think of tapas as the motivation for change. Right? Those practices that are going to incite us, give this the motivation for change, right? If you just sum it up like that, that can help. Svādhyāya. So this is study of the self, right? So often when you read the commentaries, most of them will attribute that to study of yoga scriptures, of chanting Om, studying with masters, this kind of thing. And as we want to also think about this as something for our daily life, right? And we don't all have gurus. I don't know. My guru is right there, but he's not living. And so I just find him in my heart somewhere, but I don't have some real person that I can go and ask, you know, what is this or what is that, or can you help me with this? So first we can start with studying of my own personal habits, my mind, how I deal with things in the world, why do I react in this way instead of that way. You know, we can just get to know who am I here? Who is this person? You know, on what is that ego, right? Because we're all, ego isn't something negative. Ego is just that we all have. And so who is that ego that is there? How do I behave in this world? How do I behave towards myself? So getting to know that self, right? And ways we can do that is through introspection, through studying Yoga Sutras, because it kind of gives us some little insights into different aspects. Studying Buddhism I find works really well with the Yoga Sutras, and learning a little bit more about the way the human mind and personality works, and then going inside and seeing how you behave in your human mind and your human personality. So just want to see my notes there, make sure I don't forget something. So yeah, like svādhyāya is learning and the application of mantras. They say getting with one with your deity, you know, or your mantra that you use for your contemplation. So let's see. This is from Satchitananda. So only when you transcend the mind can you understand the one. This is where yoga differs from most other psychological approaches. They usually believe you have to understand everything with the mind, and that beyond it, you cannot understand anything. They stop there, but yoga claims there is a knowledge possible without the mind. All that you know through the mind is limited and conditioned. Study is all right, but not for mere logic. Okay, so when we're studying the Yoga Sutras, it's not just for logical understanding, for quoting or fighting. This is what Satchitananda says. So we don't need to debate over, you know, what svādhyāya is, for example. Actually, it is only when you quote from your own experience that your words have weight. Sometimes learning becomes an obstacle if you don't know what and how much to learn. So limit your reading and put into practice what you read. Just select 1 or 2 books, anything that will remind you of your goal. If you happen to have the Satchitananda commentary, it's on page 82. I don't know if you have that one. My dog is sitting here requesting, she wants massages. She won't let me stop massaging her. She's like pawing me when I'm stopping here. So basically, so we can study a lot of things. We can read a lot of things. We can learn a lot of words. But if we don't go inside and know who I am, and be able to quote from my very own experience, we don't really, it's limited. It's not the kind of knowledge that we're trying to get through svādhyāya. Okay, so svādhyāya, learning about oneself. Then the Ishvara-pranidhāna. So this is about surrender. Okay, so it's learning that sometimes, so I go back to the Kapotasana example. Sometimes I have that burning desire under my aims, my aspirations, but sometimes we also have to know when we just need to surrender, right? Sometimes that asana is going to bring you into a situation of pain and agony, and then if you're just press on, then you're not going to really achieve what you're looking for, right? Which is equilibrium in the mind. And so if you push yourself so far that you've given yourself tendinitis in the shoulder, this is going to make more fluctuations in the mind. Okay, so if you use it, not saying it doesn't happen, because these things always are going to happen. So when that happens, you use it for greater learning. You use it as an obstacle that you've overcome. right? Okay, I've damaged myself. Wow, what the heck, right? I'm supposed to be doing yoga asana not to damage myself, to keep myself in well-being. And so it happens. Okay, next time, now I have a little bit deeper understanding. So you could put that in the place of svādhyāya, right? And then from there, now I know that I have to let go of, perhaps surrender to my idea of what that pose should look like. See what I mean? Maybe that pose might look like, you know, putting your hands on the wall instead of taking your hands to your ankle, right? It's still kapotasana, right? It's just a different looking kapotasana than, you know, whatever idea you had as the ultimate kapotasana, right? So if you think about these three parts of Kriya Yoga, you could say that there's the tapas, that is going to be the practices that we're going to use to change ourselves. We could say that the Ishvara-pranidhānāni are the attitude towards things we cannot change, right? My attitude towards those. And svādhyāya, you could also look at, you know, putting it into daily life, is that wisdom that we start to acquire to know the difference between that, right? Sometimes I need to put my burning desire there and I'm just gonna get up every morning, I put my alarm, I don't think, I just get up and I get to my mat and I start practicing, right? So this is the burning desire. But at the same time, wow, it's just killing me. I'm in so much pain as I'm practicing, right? Now that's where I have to maybe surrender to the fact that maybe that practice isn't what I need right now, right? Maybe I need to do only 3 or 4 asanas. Maybe I need to do a restorative practice. Maybe I need to do a pranayama practice or a meditation practice. Maybe that's something different. But how do I know the difference? Because then I could be saying, yeah, but maybe I'm being lazy. Maybe this is just the natural occurrence of change, because we said change causes discomfort, right? And so while we're practicing yoga asana, you're going to have some discomfort. The muscles are changing. It's not always easy, right? You have sore muscles, you have tired muscles, all these kinds of things. But how do I know the difference between when I'm injuring myself and maybe making permanent damage, or how do I know when it's just natural occurring change? This is self-study, right? And then when you study it, you can know when to let go and when to push on, right? And that sutra can apply to every single part of your life, honestly. You could apply it to a relationship, right? This relationship, when do I have to surrender that this relationship is just no longer healthy for me or for the other or for both of you? When is it no longer healthy? I might just need to surrender to that instead of pushing forward, right? Or maybe I need to push forward in the fact that I need to learn that it can't bother me when his clothes are all over the place, right? Right? Maybe I need to change something in myself, right? I need to look at myself and say, why does this irritate me so much, right? Why do I need to keep going on and on about this? And it's harming my relationship, instead of just surrendering to the fact that's the person I love. That's the really irritating thing that the person I love does. But I need to surrender to that. And then I need to put that burning desire inside me to accept that, right? So it's another example of how we could use those three sutras. If I want to study something, let's say I want to be a lawyer, So I'm a young person, I'm in law school. I'm gonna have to learn to put some discipline there, some self-discipline. You're not gonna complete those studies with no self-discipline. It's not gonna be possible, right? But maybe if you wanna be the top of the class, and you're going to have to sacrifice your own health and well-being, your social relationships, your duties in your home to be able to be the top of the class. Maybe you need to surrender that. Maybe I don't need to be the top of the class. Maybe I can allow myself to have little lower grades, because I also need to perform my duties in my home. I need to perform the exercise program that is best for my body. I need to take some time to have some healthy, nourishing social interactions, to do some self-inspection, some svādhyāya for myself, to have my mental stability be important as well. Right? Does that make sense? You need all this all together. How am I doing for time? Oh gosh, time goes so quickly. So I'm just going to go to the next sutra, Sutra 2.2, because it goes very well with this sutra, with Sutra 2.1. So samadhi, absorption or ecstasy, bhavana, cultivating. This is key, because we have to cultivate things. Artha is purpose. Klesha, the root causes of pain. Tanu, thinning. Karana, causing. Artha, purpose. Cha, end. Okay, so it has the purpose of cultivating samadhi and the purpose of thinning the causes of pain. The afflictions, the causes of afflictions. So it is what we're talking about was the previous sutra. So kriya-yogah, the purpose of doing kriya-yoga, practicing kriya-yoga, is to cultivate samadhi, which we've already talked about a lot, and the purpose of thinning the causes of pain, the causes of affliction, which we'll do next week, the kleshas. Okay, so we want to thin out the causes of pain. Okay, so we want to cultivate samadhi, which is absorption. Samadhi entails the falling together of our concentration, our meditation, and the prop, whatever we're meditating on, whether it's the heart center or the breath or a mantra. Okay, so this is why we want to do this. So it's a good reason, no? We want to thin out the causes of pain. So I think it's motivating. Okay, so come to sit. Let's do a little meditation. So before we can, I find for myself anyway, before I can just go directly to a meditative state, first I have to scan my body. And I try to go inside and feel this vibration. So if you go inside and you feel this vibration that's throughout the body, it's everywhere, and just notice that vibration. So as I've been talking, I always find that when I'm talking, especially as the teacher, I find that my vibration has went really fast. It's more rajastic. My breathing gets very fast. Maybe as a student, as listening, I find that often it's the opposite. It feels more dull, more heavy. anything in between. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but just giving you some examples. So going inside, feeling that vibration throughout the body, noticing it, noticing the breath. What is the state of the breath? So ultimately, we're looking to have this quality in both the body and the breath of calm, peace, but also awake and attentive. So go inside and imagine what it feels like to feel both attentive and peaceful. I find the breath can help. Once you've found a certain amount of peacefulness while feeling also alert and awake, then bring the awareness to the front part of the mind. So like as if you can imagine right behind the forehead, and sometimes you can even feel like it's like little sparks. All those little sparks kind of fluttering around. So notice if you can feel what's there. And then you're going to imagine that in the top part, like about a third down, like behind the eyebrows and horizontal through the skull, imagine that you have a body of water there. So imagine either a sea or a lake. And then notice the quality of that body of water is dependent on that energy that you're feeling behind the forehead. So, for example, if you feel like there's a lot of thoughts going through and it feels more sparkly, that maybe the water is moving fast, it's turbulent. If it's feeling more dull, then maybe that water is thick, stagnant, lots of sediment, just floating there. So just noticing what is. And then slowly imagine that that water is becoming more still. And as it's stilling, all the sediment is starting to fall down to the bottom. You can imagine that it's falling down towards the brainstem. Brainstem is at the very back of the skull, where the cervical enter into the skull. You imagine that body of water slowly is clearing. As it's clearing, it's coming more still. And all the sediment is at the very, very bottom. You notice there's a higher consciousness, the buddhi, your own higher mind. It's able to see that that body of water is clear. You're able to see deeper. Because the water is clear, it's also able to reflect what's above. And so imagine the top of the skull, the dome of the skull. There's this bright blue sky. You have this bright blue sky. Over top of this clear water that is also reflecting that bright blue sky. Slowly bring the palms in front of the chest. Chant Om. You can rub the hands together. And place the hands over the eyes. Opening the